Let's start here because so many people get it wrong when they talk about what it really means to be a woman of true value. Far too often, people confuse being valuable with being loud, demanding, or difficult to handle. But the reality is much deeper than that. A woman of worth doesn't have to raise her voice. She doesn't need to manipulate. And she doesn't use guilt as a tool to be respected. Her worth isn't something she has to announce to the world. It shows every single day, quietly but powerfully, in her choices, in the way she carries herself, in her calm strength, and in the energy she brings into a room. And here's the key difference that so many miss. The difference between a demand and a standard. A demand says, you better do this, or else. A standard, however, says, this is who I am, this is what I value, and this is what I will allow in my life. Do you feel how different that is? A demand comes from fear and the need to control another person. It's fueled by insecurity and the urge to force someone into doing something. But a standard flows from clarity and self-respect. A standard says, this is the energy I walk in. This is the level I hold myself to. If it doesn't match, I walk away without drama. But that single difference separates women who are constantly drained, always chasing after approval, from women who carry themselves with a quiet, unshakable confidence. Carl Jung once said something powerful. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That's exactly what a woman of value embodies. She doesn't twist herself into someone else just to keep a man. She doesn't lower her worth just to make sure someone stays. She lives in truth. She knows who she is. And because of that, she can speak and live with clarity, unafraid of rejection. So how does such a woman move through life? When you meet a woman of true quality, you can sense it right away. She doesn't beg. She doesn't chase after anyone. She doesn't need to scream to be heard. She carries herself with a steady calmness that commands respect without demanding it. Picture this. She meets someone. In the beginning, he shows interest, makes plans, calls, gives attention. Then, suddenly, his energy shifts. He slows his replies, grows vague, begins to pull back. A woman without standards would panic. She would start sending long messages, asking, what happened? Why aren't you calling? Did I do something wrong? She would begin chasing him, doubting herself, and sacrificing her boundaries just to keep him around. But a woman of value reacts differently. She notices the change and calmly says, hey, I've seen your energy shift. If your interest has faded, that's fine. I just appreciate honesty. I don't play guessing games. And that's it. No anger, no chasing. Just clarity. She doesn't attack him. She doesn't throw blame. She gives him a chance to speak his truth while making it clear that uncertainty and games have no place in her life. That's not arrogance. That's strength. That's self-respect. And here's the thing, men can feel this energy. Mature men honor it. Immature boys get intimidated by it. Let's be very clear here. Having standards does not mean being arrogant, prideful, or conceited. Standards aren't about rejecting people. They are about protecting yourself. A woman with standards doesn't communicate by being loud or disrespectful. She communicates with grace. She doesn't tear anyone down. She doesn't need to insult or belittle. She simply says, this is what matters to me. This is what I expect. And if it doesn't fit, that's okay, but I will not lower myself to make it fit. The Carl Jung once said another profound thing. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams? Who looks inside awakens? That is exactly what standards are. When a woman looks inward, faces herself honestly, and recognizes her worth, she awakens. She realizes she doesn't have to beg for love, doesn't have to fight for attention, doesn't have to shrink herself to be accepted. That awakening shifts everything. her words, her movements, her decisions, even the way she enters a room. Think about it. Have you ever seen a woman like that? She doesn't need to announce herself. She doesn't need to say much. The moment she steps in, her presence speaks louder than any words. You feel her calm strength. She isn't desperate. She doesn't overextend herself. She doesn't tolerate nonsense. She waits to be met with real, genuine intention. And if someone approaches her the wrong way, he immediately realizes this is not someone to toy with. Because a woman who values herself doesn't have to shout her worth. She lives it. And precisely because she lives it, every word she does speak carries weight. When she says, I value commitment. I don't play with ghosting or hot and cold behavior. She's not trying to scare or intimidate anyone. She's just being clear. When she says, I want partnership, not just something casual, she's not being too much. She's being honest about what she deserves. And here's the beautiful part: women like this inspire men to rise higher. Not because they force it, not because they demand it, but because their very presence calls out the best in others. But don't be fooled. This kind of confidence doesn't just appear overnight. A woman of value wasn't born with it all figured out. She has been through things. She has stayed too long where she shouldn't have. She has given too much while receiving too little. She knows the pain of losing herself in a relationship. She knows the heartbreak of trying to rescue someone who wasn't even willing to change. And yet, instead of letting that break her, she let it refine her. She didn't turn bitter. She grew wiser, stronger, and more resilient. She learned that love does not mean sacrificing her peace. She learned that compromise does not mean silencing her own needs. And she realized that loyalty is not a badge of honor if it destroys her in the process. Carl Jung also said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That is what happens when a woman doesn't have standards. She ends up in the same painful patterns again and again, attracting the same kind of men, suffering the same heartbreak, and convincing herself it's just bad luck. But when she finally awakens to her worth, she breaks the cycle. If you've ever broken such a cycle in your own life, then you know that moment of awakening. It's like a light turning on. You realize you're not a pawn of fate. You're not helpless. You hold the power to choose differently. You hold the strength to speak differently. And here lies the heart of it all. The language of a woman of value is different. She doesn't speak from fear. She doesn't plead with, why don't you love me? Why didn't you call? What did I do wrong? That's insecurity talking. That's fear. Instead, she says, I've noticed a change. Honesty matters to me. If your interest has faded, I respect that. But I won't chase someone who doesn't want to stay. Do you hear the difference? That's emotional maturity. That's self-worth in action. And here's what's beautiful. Real men, men who are mature, men who are ready, respect this. They don't run from it. They value it. Because when a woman has standards, she not only lifts herself higher, but she elevates the relationship as a whole. Remember this. A woman of value doesn't demand. She sets standards. She doesn't scream. She radiates calm clarity. She doesn't chase. She attracts. Her words don't come from fear, but from trust. Her energy doesn't beg, it inspires. And do you know why that's so powerful? Not because she's flawless, but because she's done the inner work. She's walked through heartbreak, through pain, and still chose self-respect instead of despair. That is the foundation of her strength. Because once a woman realizes her value is not up for negotiation, everything changes. The way she talks to men changes. The relationships she entertains change. Even the way she carries herself in the world changes. And believe me, people notice. The world feels that difference. And one more truth, one that may shock some. For a woman of value, a man is not her number one priority. She is. And that may sound strange in a world that constantly tells women that their worth is tied to whether they're chosen, married, or in a relationship. But it's the truth. A woman who values herself knows no relationship can thrive if she hasn't first built love, trust, and respect within herself. She is whole, not a half waiting for completion. She doesn't run to a man to fill an emptiness. She doesn't depend on someone else to heal her wounds. Because when you do that, you place your whole identity in another person's hands. And that's the quickest way to lose yourself. But a woman of value is different. She is already whole. She already knows who she is and what she deserves. A man in her life is not a bandage. He's a bonus. She doesn't need a savior. She doesn't need someone to give her identity. She already has it. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And that truth is written all over the life of a woman of value. I am what I choose to become. That is the spirit of a woman who knows her worth. Yes, she has faced heartbreak. Yes, she has walked through storms, but she refuses to be trapped by them. She makes a decision each day to rise higher, to grow wiser, and to see clearer. She chooses peace instead of pressure. Let me share one of her greatest treasures, her inner calm. When a woman truly embraces her worth, peace becomes her companion. She's not restless, not frantic. She doesn't force outcomes. She carries herself with patience. And peace is a quiet but mighty strength. A woman who walks in peace cannot be stopped. Sweet words do not sway her because she listens to actions more than promises. Gifts and luxuries do not buy her heart because her value is not for sale. She doesn't crave constant attention because her light already shines from within. That is why, when a man meets her, he instantly senses her calm presence. He quickly realizes he cannot play shallow games with her. He knows he must step forward with honesty and purpose. And the right kind of man is not threatened by this. He is inspired. Because a man of substance is drawn to a woman who has already mastered her peace. Her confidence is not borrowed. It is her own. The strength of a woman of worth does not rise and fall with likes, comments, or compliments. It does not lean on how many men tell her she's beautiful. Her confidence flows from inside. She can stand before a mirror and smile, not because she is flawless, but because she honors her journey. She remembers the silent nights of tears and the morning she still stood strong. She acknowledges her scars, not with shame, but as proof of survival. This is why her confidence is steady, unshaken. It is genuine, not fragile, and certainly not for sale. When a woman begins to honor her value, even the kind of men who come into her life changes. As her standards rise, the clowns fade away. The ones who sought only games, chases, or ego boosts disappear because they know they cannot measure up to her spirit. And that is a blessing because she no longer wastes her time on empty connections. Instead, she draws men who see her strength as an invitation, not as a challenge. Men who understand that her confidence does not mean she has no need for love. It simply means she will never settle for anything less than genuine love. Being by herself does not equal being lonely. One of the greatest lessons a woman of worth learns is this: solitude is not a curse. It is a gift. Too many women cling to toxic relationships out of fear of being alone. They endure disrespect just to avoid silence. But a woman who knows her worth sees solitude as freedom. It is space for growth, time for reflection, an open door to build a full life, with or without a partner. She would rather sit at her own table in peace than share a crowded table filled with chaos. She would rather spend an evening with her own thoughts than in the arms of someone who does not value her. Because she knows self-respect outweighs temporary company. And with that respect comes stronger boundaries. A woman who values herself no longer over-explains, no longer over-gives, and no longer apologizes for saying no. Her boundaries are steady and guilt-free. She no longer allows anyone to toy with her heart out of fear of losing them. She understands unconditional love does not mean unlimited tolerance. Her boundaries are not walls to shut love out. They are gates protecting her peace. But the deepest shift happens in how she speaks to herself. The words she uses in her own mind carry power. An insecure woman is plagued by doubts. She wonders, am I good enough? Did I do something wrong? If I change, will he love me more? These thoughts break her spirit. But a woman of value speaks with truth to herself. She says, I am enough as I am. If he does not see my worth, that is his blindness, not my failure. I do not need to beg for love. I am love. This self-talk becomes her shield. It reminds her that her value is not up for debate. Her entire energy shifts. She no longer enters relationships hoping to be chosen. Instead, she asks, does this fit me? Does this honor me? Does this align with the life I'm building? Do you feel the difference? One energy seeks approval. The other seeks alignment. And believe me, men notice. They immediately sense whether a woman is desperate or firmly rooted in herself. And it is this steady, grounded energy that demands respect. At the heart of it all is self-respect. That is the foundation of a woman of worth. She's already whole. She is not waiting to be completed by anyone else. She chooses peace over pressure. Her confidence is real and self-made. She knows solitude is not the same as loneliness. Her boundaries guard her peace, not her fear. And her inner voice lifts her instead of tearing her down. That is what makes her strong. Not because she never struggles, but because she refuses to accept less than she deserves. When a woman places value on herself first, everything around her shifts. The way she walks, the way she speaks, the way she chooses. It all changes. Men who cannot rise to her level step away. Men who can rise step forward. That is the fruit of self-respect. That is the foundation of true worth. Now, let's go even deeper. She knows the difference between words and actions. She has learned something powerful: words are cheap. A man can say anything. He can tell you he loves you. He can send long messages. He can whisper promises in your ear. But without action, words are empty. They may stir your heart for a moment, but they cannot carry a relationship. She values consistency over charm. A woman of worth is not dazzled by charm alone. Big gestures do not impress her if they are not backed by steady actions. A random late night, I miss you, does not move her if silence filled the day before. Why? Because she has learned that consistency is more valuable than charm, that effort speaks louder than excuses, and that patterns reveal more than promises. She does not measure a man by what he says, but by what he consistently does. If he claims he is serious, that is fine. But then she watches. Does he call when he says he will? Does he honor her time and respect her boundaries, even under stress? Because she knows one truth. A man's repeated pattern holds more weight than his explanations. If his patterns never change, then his promises mean nothing. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." This truth is how she evaluates relationships. Anyone can talk like a king, but only a true man can act like one. She also understands that attention is not the same as effort. A man may flood her phone with emojis, likes, or flirty messages, but that does not mean he is investing real effort. That is shallow energy. Real effort requires time, consistency, and intention, and she refuses to confuse the two. She will not be satisfied with crumbs. She will not lower her standard for the bare minimum. She recognizes the difference between true intention and mere distraction. and she no longer wastes energy trying to explain this over and over. If she notices inconsistency, she might express it once. Clearly, I value consistency, and I've noticed a shift in your energy. Period. She will not beg, she will not plead, she will not write long speeches trying to convince him, because she knows. If a man respects her, no begging is necessary. And if he does not respect her, no amount of begging will matter. Another lesson she has learned is about potential versus reality. Many women get stuck falling for potential. They see what a man could be and build an entire dream around that. But a woman of worth no longer does that. She does not look at what could be, but at what is real. She does not judge a man by what he promises for the future, but by what he actually shows in the present. She understands that waiting around for someone to become his best self is risky. And she knows it is not her role to raise a man. What matters to her is responsibility instead of excuses. Another thing she notices deeply is how a man handles mistakes. She does not demand perfection, because she knows life is full of errors and chaos. But her question is always the same. Does he take responsibility? Does he learn and grow from it? Or does he cover it up with excuses and keep repeating the same behavior? That is the dividing line in her eyes, the one that separates men from boys. It is not charm, not money, not looks. It is character. One of her quiet strengths is how she leaves without noise. When words and actions do not match, she does not scream, accuse, or create drama. She does not need to put on a scene. Instead, she pulls back her energy and steps away with calm dignity. No confusion, no chaos, only standards, because she knows her peace of mind is far more valuable than clinging to disorder. A woman of value is not bitter, she is built. Life has shaped her. Pain lessens growth. These have molded her. Every disappointment gave her strength. Every red flag she once ignored made her wiser. That is why her love now is careful, her time sacred, and her energy protected. She is not impossible to please, but she cannot be played with. And men feel this truth. Real men sense that games cannot win her. Lies have no place in her life. If a man wants her, he must be genuine. And the right men are not frightened by her standards. They are lifted by them. Her boundaries do not push the right man away. They awaken him. They remind him of the man he can be, not because she pressures him, but because she inspires him. She pays attention to patterns, not promises. She values consistency more than charm. She does not confuse attention with true effort. She builds on reality, not on fantasies of potential. She respects responsibility, not excuses. And when a man's actions fail to match his words, she steps away without noise. Because she knows words may sound sweet, but actions are the ones that carry truth. A woman of value always trusts the truth above everything else. Her way of communicating is another thing that sets her apart. When she knows her worth, even her voice changes. She no longer speaks from fear or insecurity, but from clarity and strength. An insecure woman might ask, "Where are you? Why didn't you call me? Do you still love me? Am I enough?" But those words create tension, drama, and distance. A woman of value speaks differently. She says, "I notice something feels different. If your feelings have changed, that's okay, but I value honesty." Calm, direct, without fear. She does not react in a rush. She responds with intention. Instead of blaming, "You never care about me," she might say, "I've been feeling some distance between us. Let's talk about it." That is the voice of maturity, not impulse. Even in conflict, she sets her boundaries with grace. "I value respect. If yelling is how you handle conflict, I will step away. We can talk again when we're calm." No insults, no storm, just clarity. And you can feel it. She does not raise her voice. She raises her energy. She does not need to shout to be heard. Her very presence speaks before she utters a word. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept yourself completely." That is the secret of her voice. She has embraced herself, her strengths, her flaws, her scars, her worth. That is why her words carry such weight. Her honesty and her calmness invite real connection. She does not use jealousy, guilt, or fear to keep a man close. Instead, she communicates with honesty, respect, and confidence. And the right men notice it. They are drawn to it. They honor her for it. She is not manipulative. She does not operate from fear. She does not need to perform or beg for attention. She speaks from security, not insecurity. From maturity, not impulse. With grace, not desperation. Her words do not stir up noise. They create connection. And that is what makes her unforgettable. That is what earns her respect. And that is what makes her different in a world where so many talk, but so few speak truth. We have seen step by step the difference between demands and standards, the foundation of self-respect, why she values actions over words, and how her communication is calm yet powerful. Now it all comes together: her presence, her purpose, and the kind of men she naturally attracts when she lives in her worth. When she walks into a room, you notice her. Not because she is loud or seeking attention, but because her energy is unmistakable. She radiates self-respect. She is steady, grounded, and needs no outside approval because she validates herself. She does not chase attention because she is already focused on what matters to her. This grounded energy is magnetic. People want to know her, stand near her, and feel her peace. Carl Jung also said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That is exactly what she has done. She is herself, without watering it down, without putting on a mask, without pretending. That kind of authenticity shines brighter than any surface level perfection. Her purpose is her anchor. Her life is not centered around a man. She is not waiting for someone to complete her. She is already whole. Her life carries meaning beyond her relationship status. Her goals, her passions, her dreams, whether in career, health, faith, family, or creativity, are what she builds on. That is why she does not cling, does not chase, and does not settle for less. Her life is already full. A man is not her purpose. He is a partner in her purpose. And not every man can handle a woman like her. Some are intimidated, not because she is cold, but because she is secure. Not because she is too much, but because she is clear. Boys see her boundaries as rejection, but men see them as respect. Boys call her too much, while men call her inspiring. She does not waste her time trying to convince the wrong ones. Her energy is not for everyone, and she is at peace with that. She is not here to please everyone. She is here to be loved and valued by the right one. The right man recognizes her instantly. He does not see her standards as walls, but as a doorway to growth. He does not fear her independence. It gives him strength. He does not see her boundaries as rejection, but as guidance. He does not need to play games because games cannot work with her. He does not need to hide because her language is authenticity. Instead of pulling away, he steps closer. Instead of avoiding, he aligns. Instead of retreating, he shows up. Her presence brings out his best. Her standards awaken his strength. And when she loves, it feels like a blessing, not a burden. Her love is rare. When a woman of value chooses to love, she loves with depth. She is not cold, she is not distant, and she is not too independent to care. When she chooses a man, she gives her heart. She becomes a safe place in a loud and restless world. She supports, she uplifts, she nurtures. But she no longer loves blindly. She does not pour into empty cups. She does not waste her love on those who do not value it. Her love is generous, but also wise. She gives it where it can grow. She does not try to control. She inspires. She does not nag for change. She lives the change herself, and that energy naturally lifts those around her. Deep love does not mean clinging. If she feels the connection is no longer aligned, she lets go. Not with bitterness, not with revenge, but with grace. She believes in release, not resentment. She knows that holding on to what is not for you only keeps away what is meant for you. When someone walks away, she sees it as space being created for something better. That is why she never forces bonds. What is meant for her will come. What is not meant will pass. Her circles are sacred. It is not only about romantic relationships. She is careful about everyone she allows close.